here, and so we try and keep to our hour. I would like to say welcome to all of you. This morning we are going to be taking a look into materials handling equipment with Martin Bailey. So Martin has designed and implemented over 500 warehouse facilities in South Africa, Europe, and the Middle East. His clients include the who's who of industry. So if you haven't heard of Martin Bailey and the materials handling side of things, then yeah, we are all very surprised. So we're going to be looking at lift trucks. They've become essential tools in the modern economy. They allow for easy movement and storage of materials and products and are a valuable piece of equipment in the management of supply chains. So what does the lift truck industry look like worldwide? What exciting developments are available? What advanced designs for future forklift innovations and features can we expect coming our way soon with the enhancement of efficiency, performance, ergonomics, safety, and intelligence? An outline of the innovations and developments in the lift truck industry is what we can look forward to. So materials handling is a critical component of the supply chain. We mentioned that. And the equipment is costly. When I first read the cost of a forklift truck, I was absolutely mortified because it costs a lot more than what my car does. But with the right partner and guidance, you can make the equipment work for you in a cost-effective and efficient way. So today's webinar is proudly sponsored by Jung Heinrich, and I'd like to welcome Mike Batulis to say a word of welcome to all of you. Mike?
Great. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much, Tanya, and good morning and welcome to everybody joining the seminar. Thank you for taking the time out to join us. We at Jung Heinrich, we are an end-to-end intralogistics service provider, and as such, I've worked very closely with both SAPEX, Tanya, as well as Martin Bailey. And with that, we would like to hand over to Martin Bailey and hear what he has to present to us today. Thank you.
Guys, can everybody see the screen?
100%.
Great. So I'm going to take you through some materials handling equipment. And I think there's a few of us enough that if anybody's got something really to say while I'm going, please shout, say something, do something, but keep it on silent until then. Because if you've got noisy dogs and kids like I have, well, I don't have noisy kids, they're grown up, but yes, noisy dogs. Let's go back a bit. I mean, the forklift's been around a long, long time. They were used quite extensively after the Second World War, all different shapes and sizes. They've been around since about 1914, the earliest forklift. So we got to ask, what's new? What's changed? I mean, they might look a little different, but essentially what's happened is they've become faster, they lift higher, they lift more. Hang on, let me do this so there's no. Great. Okay. They're more compact, they're definitely more reliable, they're hopefully a lot safer, more intelligent, easier to drive. Let me take you through some storage options, some forklift options. We start with an internal combustion forklift. On the left, I'll talk about electric forklifts. I'll talk about articulated forklifts. I'll talk about reach trucks, turret trucks, and storage and retrieval machines. So there we go, I've got a laser pointer. So the typical internal combustion forklift lift about 6 meters. I guess I've seen them up to 9 meters. It's very seldom more than about 8, 9 meters. Quite a wide aisle, 4.5 meters, and very common. And I'm going to show you some really small forklifts, to some quite big ones, 72 tons. That's the smallest forklift in the world. It can actually lift 300 kilograms, and it's pretty small. So they come small like that. There's an interesting one. That's a sort of in the 50-ton region forklift. all sizes, and for all sorts of purposes. There's one lifting empty containers.
Martin,
Yeah?
sorry to interrupt. Can you just change the presentation view to full screen and not full presenter?
There we go.
Thank you.
Right, sorry about that. Okay, there's a rough terrain forklift. And of course, reach stackers, which I guess is a form of forklift. So these are sort of standard equipment that we all know of. As an interesting reach stacker, 150 tons. This thing can pick up. I don't know why you would want to pick up 150 tons, but I guess maybe there is somebody out there who wants to. And then, of course, we have electric forklifts, mainly for use in warehousing, also lift max 6 meters. Our width in a warehouse, 3.5 meters, very common, 3-wheel, 4-wheel, up to about 30 tons in electric. Usually AC powered. They used to be all DC powered, but today they're all AC powered. Get the battery in and out. Ideal for block stack and general use around the warehouse. A lot of them with container masts, so they can go into trucks, load and unload. And here you can see one. Back to the laser printer. One there loading a container. Here's guys using a reach truck to load a container, which is quite unusual. And they can get quite big. There's a big one, electric one. There's an 18-ton electric one. 25-ton electric one. So they get quite big. And not all electric. That's a hydrogen-powered forklift. At one stage, we all thought they would take over the world, but I don't know anybody in South Africa who's even got one. But it is a great idea. 3-wheel forklift, clearly the 3-wheel has a much better turning circle. Here's some more unusual forklifts. That's a stand-up forklift. Why anybody would want to stand on a forklift, I don't know. But there's a counterbalance forklift that somebody stands in rather than sits in. And there's one that you actually walk behind. So there's a forklift for everybody. Quite a nice forklift, is almost a mini reach stacker. And the big advantage of this forklift is you can load the far side of the truck. And for a lot of cases where you want to save space, you don't need a turning circle on each side of the truck. You only need a turning circle on one side. So if you're really limited with space, this forklift, because it's got a mast that can reach right across, is really useful in that environment where we can save 5 meters turning circle in the truck loading area. And you can see, not that this is a recommended practice with your forklift, but you can see the sort of thing this teleboom can do. So it can actually go and lay stuff over there. Clearly you could do that with fork extenders as well, but this is a really nice application. Here it's loading a ship and it needs to get across that gap. And of course you can get lots of attachments for forklifts. That's a push-pull attachment. When I started in the industry, and I'd hate to tell you how many years ago that was, these were quite popular, but I haven't seen a push-pull attachment for quite a few years. So where you take the stuff off a pallet and put it on a slip sheet. So that's quite an interesting application for lift truck. Whoops. Here's an interesting one, picking up 3 pallets at once. So you can have all sorts of attachment. You can pick up as many pallets as your forklift will allow you to. There's a bit of a cumbersome attachment, but here's a drum handling attachment, and this chain allows the guy to actually tilt the drum. Clamp trucks. And if you can think of it, some guys invented an attachment to do it. Nice for fridges and washing machines and so on. And you can even get these clamp trucks where they got sensors in here that'll check that if the thing's slipping, it'll actually tighten the clamp. Crane attachment for a forklift. long forks. I don't know why anybody would want long forks like that, but these things slide over the forks, likely to kill whoever's operating it, but you can buy any sort of thing like that. And you can pick up long loads with a forklift. Although, if you really want, this is a forklift where the wheels turn 90 degrees and it becomes a four-way forklift. So it's really ideal for long loads. So standard forklift with funny wheels, and you can even get them with even funnier wheels. These wheels like this allow this guy also to travel at 90 degrees. Doesn't have to ever turn. Here's an unusual forklift. This is for a really in a foundry, in a steel foundry, to shield the guy from the very hot steel. You can pick up whatever he needs to pick up on that forklift. Yes, some interesting safety features for the forklift. Lights. I personally really don't like red lights. If you read in the literature, red lights are quite dangerous for your eyes. If it gets in your eyes, and we should stick to green lights, although 90% of the people sell the red light systems. And that's just safety, so that somebody can see the forklift coming before it kills them. But I think today, I would say 50% of the forklifts we're involved with, we put lights on. And I like the wraparound light, makes a lot of sense. Okay, let's move from forklifts to an articulated forklift. Here's a forklift that bends in the middle. We can drop the aisle down to 2 meters. Claimed lift up to 15 meters high, which is darn high. I'm not sure I would want one at 15 meters, but manufacturers claim that. And I like 2.2 meter aisle for a forklift that's articulated. I think 2 meters is a little tough. There you can see it going around the corner. The other nice thing about these articulated forklifts is they have fairly large wheels, and therefore they can actually run outside. They can run in reasonably rough terrain. You don't need a super flat floor. There you can see it in the aisle. It takes a bit of use to getting to driving it, but once you get used to it, it's quite neat. The alternative to an articulated machine is clearly a low-level turret truck. In other words, really a forklift with a swiveling mast, and you just widen the aisle and then you don't need wire guards. It's a price choice, which one you want to go for. Here's an unusual forklift. Just thought I'd show it to you. There's no place for the guy to sit on. He operates it with remote control. And you can drive it into a box for storage. And that's just to show you're picking something up, so it actually does exist. It can lift things up. A foldable forklift. Okay, so we've looked at an internal combustion engine forklift. We've looked at an electric forklift. We've looked at an articulated forklift, which can lift, and this is quite accurate height-wise. So that's at a 15-meter lift. There's a reach truck, and that's the next one we'll talk to. Most of the manufacturers make these up to 13-meter lift height, but there are guys at 14, and rumor is that there's guys even going higher than that. So here's a typical reach truck, 13-meter lift, up to 2.5 tons, although I once saw a reach truck that was 5 tons, but won't go into that. 3 meter to 3.2 meter aisle. That's typically, unless you get a really small one, you could probably go down to 2.8 meter aisle. Normally reach trucks come with a 3-stage mast, although there's one guys who offer a 4-stage mast if you really have problems getting it through doorways and so on. And as I say, about a 13-meter maximum lift height. The problem becomes when you start going above 13 meters, this floor needs to be super flat. Although when I started in the industry, 9 meters was the maximum lift height available for each truck. So they're pretty well developed, and I'm sure that one day we're going to get to 16 meters. Used everywhere. This is an Amazon warehouse, but used for almost everything reach truck. They make very strange reach trucks. This is a stand-up reach truck, which is very popular in America. Most reach trucks in America are stand-up with pantograph rather than the slide-out fork. And they come in all shapes and sizes. The Americans like the guy standing up because they reckon he can jump off, do something, jump back on again, and carry on. So he can do multi-functions. He doesn't just sit there all day. You can buy reach trucks with rough terrain tires so it can go outside, load a truck. Lots of different strange varieties. And as I say, I don't know where the limit's going to be one day. So for new warehouses today, we're designing them all for 14 meters lift, even if the reach trucks can't do the 14 meters. And we're saying that sort of gives us 16.5 meter to roof height. That's about where most of the new warehouses were designed, reach truck warehouses were designed. So one of the questions of reach trucks is what aisle width do we go for? And that's quite important because the tighter the aisle width, yeah, you save space, but you slow down operation. You have more damage. And if machines are passing each other, you really want to open up those aisles. So there's a lot of guys worldwide. When we worked for in Australia, they said to us, never below 3.5 meters for a reach truck aisle because they reckon that was a safe width. We tend to work on 3.2, but a lot of guys are dropping it below that. But it all depends on throughput. If you've got a lot of throughput, you want to increase this aisle width. And it's most warehouses. They're getting higher, bigger, but most of them run reach trucks. I would venture to guess it's over 70% of warehouses worldwide run reach trucks. And you can get, if you're going up very high, you can get cameras, fork cameras, which help you. Although the drivers use them for the first few months, and after that, you tend to find they ignore them. And all sorts of onboard terminal. Scanners, anything you like on board the lift truck. There's the ultimate lift truck, I guess. It has lots of things. Looks something like my car, but it's just giving you all sorts of instructions on board and a nice little terminal. There's an interesting reach truck. It's a diesel-powered reach truck. I guess it's a reach truck rather than a forklift because it does carry its load within its wheelbase. And that's a piggyback unit that sits on the back of this truck, goes along with it to unload all these products when you get to wherever you're going. That's a four-way reach truck. These wheels can rotate 90 degrees and allows it to become a side loader or a reach truck. And life is not all that simple. Here's a reach truck feeding a mole or radio shuttle system, which allows you to store deep lane. And if you guys are interested in all, we're going to do a rack seminar as well, which will have 40 different types of racking. Okay, so we've now done forklift, electric forklift, articulated forklift, reach truck. Now we're going to look at turret trucks, narrow aisle or VNA machines. This we would call a narrow aisle. This we would call a wide aisle. Not sure what we call that. I guess a very narrow aisle. But certainly here we're in a very narrow aisle. Lift, I said 17 meters. Yesterday somebody told me about a turret truck they're selling at 19 meters lift. So the world keeps changing. So lifting 17 meters, 18 meters, 19 meters, I'm not sure. aisle width somewhere between 1.7 and 2 meters, depending on the pallet, the height, and so on. So they come with man down, which is a fairly simple machine, really a forklift with a swivel mast stuck on the front. This particular Terra truck pivots in the middle, which allows it to turn in a much smaller run-out space. And they'll go up, do whatever they need to do at whatever height, up to 17, 18 meters, lift height. So when we're building a Terra truck building, we'd normally go for 20 meters roof height. Clearly a standard fork, which can swivel and turn around facing that way or facing that way. But they don't all look like that. You can fit telescopic forks to a Terra truck, and that brings your aisle right down. So if you're running a Euro pallet, it's a much, much simpler approach, is to use telescopic forks, and you get your aisles down to about 1.6, 1.7 meters. And it's a lot faster. But it has to be a pallet with no bottom stringers. And Terra trucks are ideal for automation because you can take the driver off because you've got a nice fixed path. It's the easiest machine to automate. And a lot of suppliers doing them. But VNA or Terra trucks got lots of complications, and the biggest one is getting this darn floor flat. So the higher you go and the more difficult it is, we put in some wire guidance, and then we've got to try to get this floor flat. We can go rail guidance, but most of them are wire guidance these days. And getting that floor flat is extremely difficult. This is a machine, we've just done a large warehouse, cost us a couple of $1 million, where we've had to grind the entire floor, bringing in this machine from England to get that floor flat enough. So just remember, if you're only lifting 7, 8 meters, it doesn't matter. When you start lifting 12, 15, 18 meters, getting that floor flat is a nightmare. And we always think that we know all the machines. This is an interesting machine. It has a fixed mast, so it's half a crane and half a Terra truck. So it uses the battery to change aisles, it uses electricity in the aisle, and it has a fixed full length, I think you can see in the background, mast. So it will go up to 15 meters, and it has a fixed mast in the aisle, and that allows you to have a far worse floor. I don't know if that's good English, but the floor doesn't need to be nearly as good. Only one guy sells it in the world, so it's not that popular. So we've seen wide aisle electric, articulated forklift, reach truck, Terra truck. Let's look at our favorite, and that's an automated storage and retrieval machine. They used to make them manual, don't sell them anymore manual. They can go up to 50 meters high. I've seen one at 55 meters, but 50 is normally the maximum height we can go to. we built one for Sassel at 40 meters high, and that's high when you get to the top. One of the other really big advantages of a crane system is there's no limit to weight. You can lift 500 kilograms, 100 kilograms, and you can lift 5 tons if you want. And you can do it with bins or pallets. There you can see an automated system handling big aluminium coils. They probably weigh 6, 7 tons of pop. So no weight limit. Most of them have got telescopic forks, platens, whatever you want to call them. And this particular one goes 3 deep. So that's another really big advantage of a crane, automated storage and retrieval crane, is because you're restraining it on the top and restraining on the bottom, you can pick up any size load and you can go to any depth you like with the forks. And there you can see one going quite deep. Could be with a shuttle or it could be with a forks. And they come in all shapes and sizes and all heights. You really get your footprint down. We're just doing a warehouse now for 45,000 pallets, and I can get all 45,000 pallets, and they're big pallets, they're 1.5 ton pallets, in under 10,000 square meters. So there's no limit really in height other than, you know, how brave you are. Most of the system's about 35, 36 meters. Aisle width about 1.5 meters with a crane. Because you fix top and bottom, you're pretty secure so it doesn't wave around. And you don't have to worry about the floor. But there's other kit as well. There's some very unusual kit on the market. This is standard side loader, which can be used for heavy, long items. Here's an unusual one used to carry heavy coils. It's a 4-way, I guess, side loader. And there's straddle carriers, which are great for lifting up containers. Much faster than a reach stacker. All sorts of equipment. This is an airport, and the airport always has its really unusual kit. So there's a tow tractor. We'll talk more about them just now. Trolleys. And air cargo stuff has all sorts of scissors, lift, tow tractors and equipment. They have a whole different vocabulary. They don't have pallets, they have skids or ULDs, unit load devices. So everything in an airport is labeled differently to what we normally know in the warehousing industry. I guess I've left the simple pallet truck out. I think we all know what that is. And it has its uses, has its problems. Little walkie stacker, which are great if you don't have bottom stringers on your pallets. The moment you put bottom stringers on the pallets, this walkie stacker becomes quite a complex machine. You've got to have very wide straddles, and that doesn't work so good. But you can do anything with a walkie stacker. Here's a little stacker without a driver, and we'll come in and see lots of those just now. Tow tractors, also missing its driver. Somebody stole him. But the tow tractor for pulling loads along where we can pull lots of loads. And powered pallet trucks with long forks, short forks. Ideal for things like loading trucks. I like the stand-in powered pallet trucks, but whenever we suggest them to our customers, they always want to go back to this walk behind or a flat behind. I think it's much safer and easier, especially if you're loading containers. And a powered pallet truck ideal for staging orders in dispatch. And you get big powered pallet trucks. Here's an airport cargo one. We'll do 10 tons. So this powered pallet truck is designed for 10 tons. We've put a few of those in and they work quite well. Just quite expensive, about $2 a pop. There you can see it handling a ULD. Then let's talk about order picking, which is the next sort of equipment that we haven't talked today. So order picking, being able to pick stuff. Still mostly trolleys. If you look at Amazon, most of their staff, and they got hundreds of thousands of them, not tens of thousands, running around with trolleys, picking like that, which is quite interesting. I think we must one day do a seminar just on e-fulfillment. Clearly the standard picking truck where a guy stands in here, puts roll containers or pallets on there is the most common. You can have nice long forks so you can carry 2 pallets at once, 3 roll containers at once. There you can see a standard order picker with 2 roll containers. And you can have that this thing lifts up. Generally in Europe, if you lift more than a meter, you've got to have all sorts of protection. But if it's less than a meter, they reckon you can fall and get up again. And these machines will follow the picker. So there's all sorts of units that follow the picker, and he's got a remote control on his wrist or his pocket, so just senses that he's there and follows him. And you can pick accordingly, and it'll go forward without you getting into the cab. And then, of course, there's the tow tractor, in which we use as a picking machine. Very nice way of picking. I'll show you some more pictures of that. There's a little walkie stacker without a driver. Okay, and here's an automated guided vehicle, which will help you pick. It'll come to you, you throw stuff in, and it goes away and does whatever it needs to do. There's a really nice picking machine. So it's a tow tractor with lots of rolltainers being pulled behind. In some ways, a lot better than an auto picking machine. And I'm surprised we don't see more of them. And here you can see this guy's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rolltainers on one circuit, which is a lot better than just having a pallet on each circuit. And then here's a little mini tow tractor, and this trolley's got steps on it, so you can go up and you can pick. Lots of little options. Especially good for e-commerce. And of course, there are lots of order pickers that will lift you up a little, or lift you up a lot. And it can raise you to a height, maybe 1 meter, maybe 2 meters, right up to, I've seen order pickers at 10 meters, 11 meters. And tower trucks that have been converted into order pickers at 15 meters. So in the normal order picker, we pick at ground level. And as we go up, we can pick all sorts of things. So here we're using a tower truck for order picking. Here we're using an order picker, which was what it's designed for, and we can pick at any height that the machine will give us. And there's a tiny little order picker used, for example, if you go to macro liquor stores, when you can get in, they use these to pick and let down. A mini order picker. And you want a maxi order picker, here's one that where the guys are picking these huge big plates of whatever. So you can get order pickers in any shape and size you want. So let's move on to some automated lift trucks. So these are quite interesting. This is at Spa in Switzerland. And the nice part about these machines, these automated guided vehicles, is they have what's called swarm intelligence. They actually speak to each other. So if there's a big spill on the floor here and this one has to go around it, it'll form all the others and they'll also go around it. The other nice thing about these is while it's moving, it can change its mind. So if you say to this thing, it's on its way to put stuff in the warehouse behind you, and you say to it, no, 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 sorry, we suddenly have decided we don't want you to go there, we want you to go here, you can actually change these instructions en route. So that's one of the advantages. Now, I was with the guy who invented these and builds these machines at their factory in Austria. And he said to me, in another 5 years, these machines will be cheaper than a forklift. And it's not surprising because it's a hell of a lot more simple than a forklift. That was 2 years ago. So he's got 3 years to prove me right or wrong. So you can get an automated forklift, automated guided vehicle in any shape and size. They come in as reach trucks, turret trucks, you name it. So there's a typical automated guided vehicle putting stuff away. Here's one, that same one that we were looking at earlier. that's moving stuff around, which is a very simple, it's got a conveyor bed over here. But you can have forks over here. You can have almost anything you like. Build them up modular and carry anything you like. Roll of paper. And this is the most famous probably AGVs around is in Rotterdam Port. So all the trucks moving containers at Rotterdam Port are AGVs, no drivers. I was listening to Elon Musk the other day, and he says 2-3 years away for totally driverless cars being common on the road. I think he's a bit optimistic, but I think it could be 5 years. Here's a little automated guided vehicle that brings your shelves to you for order picking. This is the Amazon Kivo system. So it'll go and fetch the shelf, bring it to the picker picks, and the shelf goes away again. And there's that order picking I showed you earlier. This automated guided vehicle brings goods to you, and you can put stuff away, do whatever you want, pick, using it. Okay, we've looked at forklifts. Let's talk about power for these forklifts. Traditional battery, lead acid traction battery was what it was all about. And we got quite sexy with these lead acid batteries. We got automated filling, so they don't run out of water, and we have fancy systems which we plonk onto them to manage them better. And today, in a well-run warehouse, we should get about 2,000 cycles out of a battery, lead acid battery. Battery changing has got easier. A lot of the forklifts now, we take the batteries out the side. I would think at least 50–60% of them are designed like that. We don't have to lift them out the top. And it's quite simple to stick the batteries in and take them out just with a hand pallet jack, electric pallet truck. The one machine which none of the suppliers have really cracked is getting batteries in and out of the turret trucks. Problem with a turret truck is this battery weighs 2 tons, and taking them in and out is generally with an automated changer or a forklift with pockets on the bottom. Pushing this out manually is impossible. Why none of them allow you to take it out the top is a mystery, but that's how they've all developed their turrets. And of course, you can get 101 attachments that go, these all go on a forklift in order to pull batteries out. Battery changers, or a fully automated battery changer, which will take the battery out and can stack them up to multiple heights. So there's lots of options to take batteries out, but none of them are cheap. There you can see another shot of a battery changer, which will come forward, pick up your battery out the lift truck, at a P&D station, store the batteries. Then you're going to ask me, what about lithium ion? When's it going to replace lead acid? Well, I guess it's on its way, not quite there yet, but it's on its way. Lithium ion uses less energy, maybe. You can charge 8 times faster. It should last longer, maybe too long, because what are you going to do with the darn thing when your forklift's worn out and your lithium ion battery is still there? It likes to be opportunity charged, which lead acids don't always like. There's no maintenance, no watering. You can get longer runtime at a price. And they don't emit any harmful fumes. You don't need any charge rooms, but they cost somewhere now close to 3 times that of a lead acid battery. And you've got to be just one of the things you must be really careful with lithium ion and any rapid charging is everybody goes for lunch at the same time, and your 40 forklifts all go and plug themselves in and do some opportunity charging, and your peak power demand goes through the roof. And you really don't want that. You want to actually charge as slow as possible in off-peak periods. So, you know, peak power is an issue with lithium ion. And if you run 3 shifts, I'm not quite sure how you'd use lithium ion, because you don't have a chance if you're running 3 shifts or 4 shifts to actually opportunity charge. But there's a lot of, no argument, a lot of advantages for a lot of operators of lithium ion, especially if you're not running multiple shifts. The other option, which is quite interesting, is supercapacitors. A lot of the AGVs are running supercapacitors, and the MOL systems are running supercapacitors. And I think they've got a lot of potential. I think we'll find more and more supercapacitors in smaller vehicles, not the big lift trucks. Here's this, you'll have to just believe me, this MOL unit or radio shuttle unit has got supercapacitors to move around. Another one opportunity which I think will come at us in the future is inductive charging. What we've got is power in the ground, and this thing inductively picks up from that power, so we don't have to take it anywhere, we don't have to do anything, it just joins. We also have cleverer chargers. They're getting brighter and brighter with better and better technology, and all shapes and sizes. And by controlling the charge, we can certainly improve the life of the battery. Fast charging, I'm not a fan of it. I really don't like fast charging of lead acid batteries, but there's a lot of guys selling equipment that does do fast charging. Again, one of my problems with there are two problems with fast charging. One is you significantly reduce the life of the battery. The second one is that you push your peak demand through the roof, and I don't like any of that. A lot of new stuff for managing your forklift, a lot of telematics around, and there's some really good stuff that looks after your forklifts, that communicates with the world, that tells you. And if you've got a fleet of, say, more than 10 machines, this sort of stuff really starts making sense. You know, tracks your forklifts, tracks your maintenance, checks over the safety, limits the use of the forklifts to those who properly qualify, and so on and so on. Checks your every part of the forklift. And there's a lot of telematics that will give you lots and lots of nice information. And the bigger your fleet, the more you need this sort of stuff. Lastly, I think just before I finish and get some time for questions on that, safety stuff. You know, forklifts move around, they're quite deadly, they do drive into things, they do kill people. It's all about training the drivers, how they do it, how careful they are. And see, I've seen some terrible accidents with forklifts. Just, you know, extra training, extra development, hitting rack clearly is one of the most dangerous things, because racking does fall down when you knock it hard enough. This is an interesting one. This is a warehouse in Russia that was storing fruit juice, and it's fully automated, and the whole thing collapsed. And the whole city was full of fruit juice running down the streets from here. So it's not just ordinary warehouses. Automated warehouses can have accidents as well. Seat belts, keeping people on seat belts. I've got a client whose guy drove into a wall, and if he wasn't wearing a seat belt, the driver would have been really dead. So the future of the forklift, is it going to be something different? Is the future going to be we print stuff at home and we don't have to drive for any forklifts in our warehouse? We don't need a supply chain. We don't need to worry about last mile delivery. As our future forklifts will just be remembered, we'll build them out of Lego. And is our future about automation or not? That's about it from me on lift trucks. Guys, question?
No. Okay. Questions? Our people this morning, they are very quiet.
Maybe too early, Tim.
No. Come now. It's not too early. It's nearly 9:30. Everybody should be awake and up and happening. Okay, so there's a note there. No questions. I think the notion of not having forklifts in the future is a bit of a scary thought, but I think we may still be a long way off from that. I don't know how everybody else feels. Maybe a little bit more technologically advanced, maybe they can do a little bit of thinking for themselves. I mean, there's been talk about autonomous forklifts with a little bit of intelligence. I don't know. But yes, so if there are no more questions, we're getting a lot of thank yous.
Actually, a comment to make.
Yes.
I actually found, like in our industry, so I'm part of actually an Israeli company, and we've got like the pickers uses power trucks to do their picking, but they got like balances in the reach truck forks that weighs the goods as they pick. And I found that when our operations manager from Israel came to South Africa, he was like, this is the first thing we're implementing. And what was quite interesting is he couldn't find an ROI on it. And we actually ended up converting our manual pallet jacks with weight balances in it. Because obviously their labor cost is a lot more expensive in Israel compared to in South Africa. So I can say I do think in South Africa that the ROI for automation is a bit more of a further stretch than in Europe. Unless, if I take it in a lot of these countries, land is an issue. So you have to build your warehouses a lot smaller and higher. Where in South Africa, we may have a bit more leniency with that. But yeah, so I do find the ROI on automation sometimes holds back, that you do see in European countries or other countries a lot more of the automation compared to South Africa.
So 100%. You're totally right for most things. So when do we automate? We automate when we just simply can't get throughput anymore. So let me give you an example. Vodacom, MTN, where we do 150,000 phones a day. There is no way you can do that without automation. Just not possible. You just couldn't. Automate when you've run out of land and you don't want to move site and you have to squash into the existing site. There's a good time to start going higher and more automated. But we've got to look in the future. I wonder if that'll stay the same. At the moment, the cost of automation's come down, but our rand dollar's gone to pot as well. So it's still difficult to justify any automation. But hey, what happens when these automated lift trucks become substantially cheaper than a man-driven forklift? And it's only a matter of time. I know but surely the darn thing's a lot simpler. So once the software is standardized and the guys can produce them in mass, surely, I don't know, maybe. I think we might find that automated lift trucks, but we still in warehouses move boxes. That's 80% of what we do. So you still need humans to move boxes, mostly. And to move boxes fully automatically just becomes horrifically expensive. So I think the lift trucks may change, but I think we'll still be largely using people. But I agree, it's tough act to justify full automation.
Watson, I've got a question. You've mentioned that you've worked with Sassel on an automated warehouse. Is that the one in Sasselburg?
Yeah.
Oh, I had I've missed the opportunity because I did work for Sassel, so I almost had opportunity to go and see it, but I missed it. So I regret it. If we could have a visit to that warehouse, that would be amazing. So that would be like a wish list if SAPIX could arrange a visit to that warehouse.
I built that 16 years ago.
Okay, that's very impressive.
Still running. The only problem with that, first you have to be a South African citizen. You have to have a proper ID book, and we have to get permission a week in advance and all of that. But maybe one day we can do a visit. Maybe SAPIX can do a visit. It's 40 meters high, has 42,000 pallets, and they're big pallets, 1.5 tons each. And it's been running for 15 years, yeah. Okay. 16 years.
Cool.
Wow.
But the easier one to go see is the DSV one in Meadowdale.
I've seen that one. I think
Oh,
Sapix did a visit to that one last year.
Yeah.
yeah, we're busy
That was
modifying that
impressive.
at the moment. Just finished big modifications to it. And that's one of the problems with these automators is they're a bitch to modify. So if you want to change something, once it's built, you sort of, you know, it's not a matter of just knocking down a few racks and putting another type of lift truck in. It's quite difficult.
Martin, I have a question for you here. Are there any key service providers that provide telemetry retrospectively on some of the old materials handling equipment in our warehouses?
Oh, yes, sir. We've got a few forklift truck suppliers here. Maybe you want to ask them if they know the answer. You know, the new stuff comes clearly with a lot more telemetry stuff. I think it's much like your motor car. There's a new screen and a new button that does something, but retrofitting it to old stuff, no idea. Colleen, you guys, all right.
Martin, thank you for the presentation. I think I want to not add to or just add to Bernice's comments. At what point in South Africa are you looking at high density storage and automation? Because the moment you go high density, everything, your cost goes up. And you know, we're sitting with, I think, fairly cheap warehousing space at the moment. So, you know, what type of goods do you need to store, and what type of industries justifies it?
I'll argue with you. It depends what you mean by high density storage. But rents are not cheap in South Africa. Why not? Aren't they cheap? Because interest rates are so high. So you'll find rent of buildings in South Africa is higher than it is in the United States. And that's an interesting fact, okay? Why? Because the initial yield, even though our interest rates officially have come down, the developers are still working on a yield rate of 9%, with an escalation on 6-7% on top of that. The yield rate for building a building in the States or in UK is about 2%. So literally you can take the cost of building there, which may be 3-4 times higher, but your cost of money is 3-4 times higher here. If you want to store bulk, it's actually cheaper to put in a Terra truck and go higher than it is a reach truck, and it's a lot cheaper than block stacking. If you want order picking, that's a whole different ballgame, because order picking means that you need access to get to the product, and the height of storage is a function. I always tell the story as I was at Walmart and they store 6 levels high, and when we do stuff in South Africa, we go 9 levels high. Why do they only go 6 levels high? And they think that's too high. In other words, their warehouse is only 8 meters high. Because their suppliers are so good, they say they don't need any bulk. Their suppliers deliver on time every time. It's a whole different world. But if you're storing bulk stuff, pallets, we gave the example of saddle or plastics. There's no way that it's cheaper to do wide aisle. It's much cheaper to go narrow aisle and high. Whether you can justify cranes is one thing, but certainly Terra trucks you can justify. So we've just done a new house for Sassel in Saddleburg, Sassel Wax, and that's stored 14 pallets high.
Well, thank you.
I don't think, I don't think it's more expensive. I think it's actually cheaper to go higher, but not full automation. That's expensive. Really, I can only justify that. I'm talking about a high 40-meter high warehouse when you've just run out of space.
Any other questions?
Guys, if you're shy to ask at any time, just drop me an email, get hold of me. You can always speak to me.
Thank you, Martin, for that informative session. It's always very interesting. Your sessions are always very interesting and very thorough. and I'd just like to thank you all for being here this morning. I just want to hand over to Mike from Jung Heinrich, the sponsor of this morning's event. Thanks for having us and hosting us. Just to say a few closing words for us. Thanks, Mike.
Of course. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much to the participants that joined, obviously to Martin for hosting the seminar, and obviously for SAPEX, Tanya, and you guys and yourselves for organizing the event. I think it's always good to have these discussions in light of COVID and the fact that we can't see everyone in person. It's nice that we keep the momentum going with these webinars. So thank you, guys. Thanks to everyone involved, and we look forward to the next one.
Thank you, and thank you very much for coming on board and supporting us.
Thank you.
We really
No
appreciate it. So the session has been recorded. You will be sent the YouTube link once it's been downloaded.
Great.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Have a super day. And we'll catch you at the next one. Martin's going to be doing another event on the racking and shelving side of things. I don't know what the date is offhand, but if you have a look at the SAPEX calendar, you can get that there and register for that.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Tanya.
Thanks, guys.
Take care. Cheers.
Cheers, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.